Mr. Pat Flynn is going to be joining me today on the podcast, and we are talking about online courses. We're going to dissect, in fact, his entire online course business. It's going to be a good one coming up right now on the Rise to the Top podcast. And welcome, my friends, to the Rise to the Top podcast. It's your great and good friend, David Siteman Garland. I want to welcome you here to, I think, is this, depending on when the date is, our last episode here of the year, and actually have our first repeat guest of the year, Mr. Pat Flynn. Now, you should know Pat Flynn. If you're alive and you have the internet and you listen to this show, you should know Pat Flynn. Pat Flynn is the creator of Smart Passive Income. He has been around in business about as long as I am. I think, in fact, we both started our businesses in 2008. And he's done a variety of different things with his Smart Passive Income business. But here's what's interesting about this, and where this kind of conversation gets some context here, is that for years, Pat and I have hosted a webinar together for the last 5+ years. So Pat has me on to talk to his community about online courses. And we've been doing this for years and years and years and years and years and years. And the funny thing is, every year I get on this webinar with Pat, and I say to Pat, where the heck is your online course, right? Where's your online course? Because for years he'd been talking about it. And listen, I could poke fun at him because he's a good friend of mine. He had every excuse in the book why he wasn't going to do an online course yet, but he wanted to do online courses. So every time we did the webinar, he would say, you know what, I'm going to do my online course, but, blank, right? Whatever the excuse of the moment was. And this went on for years and years and years because Pat knew he had something to teach. He knew he had a great community. And he knew that online courses would really take his business to the next level. Well, fast forward to now, about a year and a half ago, Pat finally decided to bite the bullet and do it. And do the thing that he'd been talking about for so long, and that is to create his own online courses. Now he actually has several of them. The one is my favorite is called Power Up Podcasting, which is what I actually used when I was relaunching this podcast. But here's the thing. Is that now we've got a completely different perspective on this, and Pat's going to come on the show here today, and we're going to break down everything with his courses business, how much revenue he's making, his specific strategies, how he keeps customers happy. And another interesting thing we're going to have a talk on, it's funny, he's going to say, is this a debate or a discussion? It's a discussion about whether or not you should pre-sell your course, and I think you're going to find that really interesting as well. So we talk about his pre-selling method. We talk about how he's getting customers, how he's keeping them, everything you could possibly want to know about Pat's online course business. So without further ado, let's just get into it. All right. Well, now I am joined by the one, the only, the Mr. Pat Flynn. How are you, Pat?
What's up? Thanks for having me, man.
You know what? I was just thinking about, you are one of the rare situations on the new podcast. I had to call it the new podcast because we brought it back in 2018, right? Mm-hmm. Is that you're the first repeat guest.
No way. Awesome. Well, I'm honored. Thank you. You must like me a little bit then, I guess.
Listen, you're just so nice to say yes. So I'll send you your special, you'll get like a medallion or something. We'll send you something, right?
Right.
Well, I'm really excited because, it's funny, last time when you were on, if you remember, we talked a lot of podcasting. We had a podcasting workshop coming up. We talked about that. That's one of your major things you do. But this time we're going to talk about courses. So I'm really excited to kind of dive into this because this is a world that you have really immersed yourself in.
Yes, absolutely. And just big shout out to many of your students who came over to take one of my courses about podcasting. They're amazing. Your students are action takers, and it's just been really cool to see them create their own podcast. So, that's one of the best things about courses is you get to actually see people with real results, because one thing that you teach, I know, is it's all about the transformation, right? And it's taking them from, wishing they had something and struggling with it to actually succeeding and having the new thing that they got the course for. It's just been so rewarding, and courses have definitely been like, you might be surprised to hear this, but I've been doing business for 10 years. It's only within the past couple of years that I've really put courses into my business. So it's been a wild ride.
For those that don't know, Pat, you and I, we've been friends for years and years and years. We've got very similar, different but yet similar audiences and people that listen and follow us. And we do a lot of stuff back and forth. You've sent lots of people over to my Create Awesome Online Courses program for years and years and years and continue to, which is awesome. We send folks that are interested in podcasting to you. But what's interesting is that there was a big shift for you really this year or last 2 years, really over the last, year and a half, when you finally went from thinking about doing online courses to actually now doing online courses? And I know you've done, I don't know if you know your numbers offhand, Pat, but what would you give us a give or take how much revenue you've brought in since you started doing online courses?
Well, just this year alone, we hit $1.2 million in online course sales. And the year before that was near and around the same. So, close to 2.5 million, I would say.
So that's a 7-figure arm of your business every year, which is awesome. And
which wasn't there before.
And it's funny because we did, as you know, we do a training together every year. Usually in the spring. Sometimes we do one in the spring, one in the fall. And we do these different things. And it's interesting. Every year we do a training about online courses. And it was, hey, Pat, when are you going to come out with your course, though? I know you love courses and you love sharing me with your audience, but when are you going to do your freaking course, Pat? And this was going on for years. I mean, we're talking like 5 years. And then all of a sudden, something got you over the hump and said, you know what? I'm going to do this. What got you over the hump?
Well, a number of things. First of all, I just got over my own limiting beliefs. And I think this is something that we all struggle with, especially like at the time of this recording, we're approaching 2019 and we all have big goals that we want to achieve. But as soon as we start thinking about those goals, we have that little devil voice on our shoulder telling us like why we can't do this, why it's going to be a failure. And when I was thinking about online courses back in the day, I would have that little voice that would pop up and it would say things like, who are you to create a course about this? Somebody else already has something like that. Or you're never going to get this course to be to the standard and quality that you want. Like it's never going to be perfect. To other ones that were really interesting, especially because I had been very successful in the affiliate marketing realm, was, well, are you just creating courses because you're just trying to make more money? Like, can you actually even provide more value to your audience than you're adding already? And I really had to get over that. And actually, it was a specific conversation I had with somebody who told me that I was not best serving my audience because I didn't have courses. The fact that I could better serve my audience if I did. And I didn't really understand that until this person basically just dug into my history and said, Pat, okay, what was one of the biggest, most significant things? And I think he knew my story, so he kind of like was coaching me through this process. He's like, Pat, what was something when you started online that was really helpful for you? And I was like, well, it was this podcast called Internet Business Mastery, and these two guys, and they were like, okay, well, did they ever offer you anything that you bought? And I was like, I knew where he was going at this point. And I was like, yeah, I bought their course. And he was like, well, was that helpful? And I was like, yeah, it was life-changing. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that course, which doesn't exist anymore. But he was like, bingo. Like, you're not giving your audience the opportunity to go deeper with you. You have a podcast just like they did. You're building a relationship with your audience just like you built a relationship with them through the podcast. And now you are just holding them back because you're not giving them exactly what they need. And the other part about this was I was afraid to ask my audience to pay for more things because I was already asking them for, my affiliate marketing. So here are some tools. I make a commission. That's it. But what I realized was that sometimes people want the deeper advice. And the fact that I was creating courses wasn't a change. It was an add-on. That's the thing. I wasn't taking anything away from what I was already doing and what I was already offering. People had said that I was the most helpful person online. And guess what? Now I can be even more helpful and still provide for people who maybe they weren't even ready for the courses, but there were people. This person was like, there are people in there who need you to create this course. And so I created my first course, which was called Smart from Scratch. And it was just essentially the next step in my book, Will It Fly? Because Will It Fly is essentially the process, but Smart from Scratch is the detailed deep dive into that and the accountability and those kinds of things. And my gosh, after that first beta test, like I didn't even have the course fully finished. Just the fact that I was able to put a sales page up and get over 120 people to pay to essentially vote like, yes, this is exactly what I need. I knew that courses from that point forward were going to be an important part of the process of not just building my business and more revenue, but serving my audience too.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you're in the very common thing of people that have an audience that have been doing something, let's say, free for a while, right? So for a period of time, like creating free content or not asking people directly for revenue. I think that's a very common fear. In fact, that was me way back in the day as well. I was like, well, I had the show, there were sponsors of the show, that's how I made revenue. I did some coaching, stuff like that, but I didn't really overtly promote stuff specifically to my audience until, I started doing podcasts. And I think there was that fear there. But my guess is, I'm sure there was maybe one or two knuckleheads that maybe said something. But overall, would you say that that's just a common fear? That's just a limiting belief that holds people back from it?
I mean, absolutely. And then when it comes to like, okay, what are people going to say? How are people going to respond? My response is I haven't done anything different but add on to what I've already been doing. So if they are not in tune with the fact that I'm now having premium courses that I could sell, that would be really helpful. Well, guess what? I'm going to point them to the free content that would at least get them started. And what's really funny is many of those people go, wow, okay, now I realize how important this is, and I've already gotten value from your free stuff. Your paid stuff must be awesome. Like, I'm sorry I said those things before, but now I'm going to be a student of yours, and I'd happily purchase. And it's really interesting when that happens, because it just shows me that a lot of this is all about mindset. It's about the mindset that you have and the approach that you have with the courses that you sell, but it's also about the mindset of the customer. It's funny because, like, now that I teach people through online courses and people are building their own products and courses to serve others too, a common thing is like getting feedback from people who may not purchase your thing. So one thing I teach in Smart from Scratch is to validate your business ideas, and one way to do that is to actually ask people to pay for something, even if you haven't built it yet, knowing that they're going to get that thing if there are enough people who are behind it. And then one thing that always comes up is like, well, what if people don't buy? And traditionally what happens is people build things and then they try to sell it, nobody buys, and you're kind of lost. You're like, what happened? But if you build relationships and find people who are interested, you know exactly what they need, then you offer it to them. If they don't yet buy, now you can ask them questions. Now you have the ability to get answers. And one of those answers is typically, well, the price was too high. The one thing I've learned, it's when people say that the price is too high, it's never about the price.
No.
It's about
never.
It's never about the price. That's just the excuse. What that really means is they just don't believe that what you're offering is worth that much. So there's a messaging problem, or perhaps the solution isn't that as valuable as what you're charging. So then it becomes about the messaging. Well, what would be worth that much money, or how much is this going to be helpful to you? So it's all about mindset. And for me, as you can tell in my start with online courses, I mean, not having done online courses for 8 years of my business, even though I had this audience who was essentially thirsty for them, it was just completely a mindset thing.
Yeah, I get it. And here's the interesting thing about this is that we've talked about this when we do our trainings together, is that you and I do a lot of things similar when it comes to online courses, and also some things different. And I think that this would be really interesting to talk about, is some of the things that you do, kind of the Pat Flynn way of doing it, which is kind of a create awesome online courses remix, if you will, and doing a couple of things, because I think it's always interesting to hear kind of differing perspectives and different things that are working and what's working for you. And I think it'd be kind of cool to dissect that, for example. So, for example, let's talk about this. What's your best-selling course?
Power Up Podcasting.
Okay, that was going to be my guess. If you told me something else, I would have been surprised. I got to be honest. Power Up Podcasting, which I'm a student of and love. It's a great course. So let's talk about this. It's the old chicken or egg, and there's not necessarily a wrong way to do this, but you prefer to pre-sell the course before actually creating it. And this is very different, and I want to talk about this, and I also want to talk about something that we saw on the internet last week that we've been talking about in our private Facebook group related to this. But let's start with this, Pat, before I bias it with what I'm going to mention.
Well, let me ask you: Are we going to debate this, or are we just going to discuss this?
It's a pure discussion. You know why? Because I've seen students be successful both ways.
Bingo, B2.
So I am not going to be like hard and fast on this. I'm going to talk about a scenario that happened. We'll start with that. Why don't we start with that, Pat, before I explain it?
Okay.
So Rochelle, who's one of our great Create Awesome Online Courses students, witnessed something on Instagram a couple weeks ago. Okay? And what it was there was a woman who was selling a course. Doesn't matter what it's on. It's not relevant, right? We're not here to call out people. That's not what the show is about. She made a course on something, and she pre-sold it. And she apparently is a big online influencer and sold a lot, okay? And then didn't deliver on it. Whatever happened, I think there were excuses. She realized she didn't really want to do it. There was some kind of major blow up that happened because of this that upset everybody, right? Now, this might be a rare case, but it's interesting. It's food for thought that some people are thinking and coming into the Facebook group and saying, well, this is a great case study on maybe why you don't pre-record if you're actually not going to follow through with it. Now, I know that's a no-brainer thing.
You mean why you don't pre-sell?
Yeah.
Why you don't pre-sell?
That's why we were kind of talking about this in the Facebook group, and it wasn't a debate. We were just discussing, saying like, listen, if you're going to do it something like that, you better freaking follow through with that. Are you serious right now? And that's when that happened, I was like, you know what? We have to talk about this with Pat when he comes on the show. So I want to hear what are your thoughts on that, and why do you prefer that method?
So number one, just hearing that story kind of like put a lump in my throat. It makes me sick to know that somebody didn't follow through with what they promised somebody and actually had people pay for it. Like, that's just sickening to me.
Yeah. Oh, me too. I mean,
if you pre-sell something and people buy it you must deliver. And if there are issues, because yes, life gets in the way and things happen, you have to, as much as you can, communicate with that set of buyers what is happening and offer the ability to refund if they want. And it's like I've felt similar things on Kickstarter. Like on Kickstarter, for example, things are pre-sold all the time. I mean, that's what Kickstarter is mainly all about.
Literally what it is, right? Basically.
And I remember buying something and it's been 2 years and I haven't received it yet.
Oh,
and
yeah, right.
Luckily, this team is very communicative and they've expressed a lot of the delays and manufacturing issues they were having. And that's another reason why I love digital products, because I don't have to worry about those kinds of problems. Although I am diving into physical product realms as well. But anyway, that's besides the point. I love pre-selling, and I love to make sure we're always honest along the way. There are other sort of non-honest ways to do pre-selling, which have been taught in the past. Tim Ferriss, I love Tim. In his book, The 4-Hour Workweek, he spoke about pre-selling as a way to validate. And the reason I love validation is because essentially what this does is it removes the guesswork. And that's what I want to do in my business as much as possible, remove the guesswork. And what Tim taught was setting up a website and collect payments for a product that I think it was like sailor shirts or something, if you might remember that.
I remember this. I mean, I'm remembering this now. This is coming back to me very clearly.
Yeah, so setting up a page like that and then actually paying for ads to bring traffic to that site and seeing if anybody would even click on the buy now button. And then when people click on the buy now button, that's kind of like the validation. But of course, you don't have this inventory yet because you kind of are just seeing if people want to buy it. So essentially a message comes up and goes, we're currently out of stock, but we'll, leave your email and we'll let you know when we will, have these products again or something like that. So that way he would know, like, okay, well, people really do want this thing, versus getting all the shirts and having a warehouse and getting all the sizes.
He's got a warehouse full of shirts that maybe nobody wants.
Selling it and realizing nobody wants it, right? But when it comes to online courses, I love the idea of pre-selling online courses, because then I know for sure I could take the guesswork out of the fact that I should go down this route and finish creating this course or not. And I always approach it in an honest way. Not saying Tim's is a dishonest way. I think that's a very smart approach. But when it comes to online courses, especially in the environment we live in now, I think full honesty is always the best thing. So I say when I pre-sell a course, this course is not made yet. This is the next course that I want to create. And many of you have expressed interest, and I have people who are, really wanting and needing a solution for this. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to charge this much money for this course. Here's the outline for it that I've determine is the best solution. Here are the kinds of things that you can expect. And when you sign up, there is no course content available yet. However, on this date, you will begin to receive the content dripped out to you over time as I create it with you. Part of the benefit is you'll be able to do it with me, and I can ensure that this process is fully giving you the experience that you need to achieve X, Y, and Z, the very important transformations that David always teaches us to include in our courses. So what happens is I actually am able to then build the course with the student. They feel special because they're getting special treatment. I'm giving them access to me and allowing them to leave me feedback so that when I create the next lesson or next module, I know what I missed. I know what I can include. I can fill in the gaps along the way so that I know that by the end of this thing, number one, a full course will have been created with the students in the manner that it was supposed to be created. Not anything extra, not anything less, exactly what it needs to be. Number two, hopefully, having also given them results such that I can then collect testimonials so that when I go public, I can now say, here are some students who already went through the course. These are our beta students, and they got in early, and here's what they have to say about it. Now I have real testimonials of people who have gone through it. And I also love this process because when you kind of limit the number of people in there and kind of let people know ahead of time that this thing exists, even if people don't get in or don't want to get in, they know this course exists and they're going to be curious. Oh, I wonder how this will work out. I wonder if this is actually going to be helpful. And now these testimonials, knowing that you can transform these lives, is going to show these people, hey, you know what? I remember when Pat pre-launched this. Now's the big public launch. And wow, look at these people and the results they got. I could probably do that too. And what I also love about this approach is just the idea that it gives, like, going through it with students, like one-on-one like that, maybe it's 20 students, maybe it's 40 students. It could even be 10 students to validate it. What I love about this is when you go through this process and teach them the course that you've created with them, you now will have the confidence to promote your course and fully sell it. That's the big one for me. That's the big one for me, David, is if I create a course fully from scratch without ever having tested anybody going through it, I cannot in full confidence say this course is built and I know it's going to work, even though I know it's going to work because it's my content and I've delivered it in hopefully a way that would be easily consumable. Now that I have people going through it and actually succeeding with it, I am 100% confident. And that way, I'm 100% confident in my selling of it.
Yeah, makes perfect
because
sense.
People can read through when you're kind of like, oh, well, this might work for you. And, if nobody's going to buy if you're not confident.
So let me see if I can dissect this, because it's really interesting for people that do want to try this method and kind of learn the Pat way of doing this. First of all, how many courses have you pre-sold? I mean, meaning, I'm sorry, how many different courses? I mean,
4
different courses.
I just pre-sold my latest one last month.
Same methodology basically on all of them?
Same methodology with the asterisk of I will follow through.
Correct. And by the way, that's what I was getting with that. And that's the funny thing is that when this was mentioned in the Facebook group, my thought process immediately when I saw it was, that's a great example of something going wrong, but that is not necessarily validation for that method doesn't work. Does that make sense? Meaning that's a case study, and because you can make the same argument that someone says, here's a course, and then they actually don't give it to you, right?
Usually what happens is when you have like 20 people who have paid, like that will motivate you to do
that. Gets a fire in your butt. That gets a fire in your butt.
I don't know what happened with this person.
Yeah, fire went out of the butt, which is not good in this case. Sometimes it's good, not in this case. So let's talk about this, like just kind of deep diving a little bit into the methodology, Pat, because I want to make sure I understand it too, and everyone that's listening. So you come up with a brand new course. It's called Power Up Podcasting, let's just say. Okay. So first of all, you wrote your outline, which was critical because you had this is what we're going to learn. Okay. You had that on a page. And let's talk about pricing for a second. How did you go about special pricing and also figuring out kind of like what your full pricing is on that?
My methodology is, and I'm experimenting with this on the latest launch that I did for my latest course. I did make it a little bit cheaper than it would have cost, and I don't know if that's the right thing to do. With Power Up Podcasting, we actually had it. Actually, with a couple of my courses, we actually had the price the same that it would be because I don't want the validation to come
from discount buyers, right?
From discount buyers. I mean, not that discount buyers are bad, but I don't want the reason that people get in is because, well, it's just cheaper. That doesn't tell me that they really want this course. It tells me that they want to save some money.
Right, and I've seen people do that, and it's been a disaster. So meaning I've seen people that are like, my course is $600, but you can get it right now for $3, or even worse, they can get it free to try to get feedback, and I just don't feel like you get real feedback that way.
I mean, it kind of depends, right? I mean, if you were to share a really valuable course that would be hundreds of dollars with 10 of your top super fans who want to be a part of this process,
yeah,
then that could work out for you because they're going to give you some amazing feedback and they are going to follow through. And it probably wouldn't have mattered if you charged them or not. They're going to be helpful, but you're doing this because you're of goodwill and et cetera, et cetera. The other asterisk, I mean, the other part about this before I have you dig even deeper is that if you were to pre-sell this and it didn't sell, that A, doesn't mean it completely failed, but B, wow, you've avoided a lot of work that you didn't have to do. But C, now you have people because you've done some work ahead of time understanding who has interest for a solution to determine, okay, well, what went wrong? What was the problem? You can just, if there were, for example, 2 people who bought and you're like, I don't think that's enough people, although there is validation in that as well. But the simple thing is just go, you know what, I'm just going to refund those people and figure this out. And most people will be like, okay, well, you were honest with me and told me that this was a possibility that not many other people would do it. Sure, just give me my money back.
Right.
Everything's fine.
Yeah, and I've actually, it's interesting. I've actually done that before. A lot of people don't know that. I experimented with a couple of programs several years ago, and I just didn't like how the sales were coming in for it initially. So guess what? I gave everybody their money back, right? I mean, It's happened. And it, not everything we touch, contrary to popular belief, turns to complete platinum, diamond, gold, right? We definitely make mistakes, definitely try different things, and you see that. Now, Pat, when you're, and it's interesting because I know people are thinking, well, what's the number I need to get, or what's this or that? I don't know if there's like an actual number you could give to say you need this many students for it to be successful. Because like you said, I mean, you could get a small handful, and that could be really interesting validation for it. I think that's probably different for everybody, right? But for you, so you get this page up, you have the outline, forget the price for now. Let's just say it's full price. You then use your assets then to tell everyone like, hey, you got to sign up by X date to be part of this, or how do you kind of handle that? And do you send that out to everybody?
I send that out to everybody. And by everybody, I mean the people who I know who are interested in this. they've in some way, shape, or form raised their hand to tell me that this is something that they want. They didn't necessarily know that it was a course. They didn't necessarily know what this was going to be or even the name of the program, but they told me in some way, shape, or form that this is something they need.
What's an example of that? What's an example of they told you?
Right. So an example of that, so like a virtual yes, like raise my hand, head nod, would be somebody downloading my cheat sheet for how to start a podcast. Or somebody who had downloaded a lead magnet on a blog post that was specifically for beginner podcasters. Or in my email sequence, I actually have survey questions that are managed through ConvertKit that essentially say, do you have a podcast? Yes or no, or click the button below if you want to potentially start one day. That way, they essentially get tagged as like interested in podcasting.
I like it. So this is an important point. Instead of you saying, I'm going to send this out to all of Pat Flynn Nation, right? Instead, you're sending this out to just people that have indicated one way or another. They've clicked a link. They filled out a thing. They downloaded a certain thing. There's a lot of different metrics, obviously, you could use on that. You know that these people at least are more than the average person in the world are much more interested in this topic.
Yes, however, the asterisk here is that my brand covers a load of topics.
Yes, and most cover one.
You must cover one. So if your website and your brand is so niched and targeted, and that's wonderful if it is, then you might already have done that through just the fact that people have found you and they're following you already. Very common is to, even if you don't have a website or a following, is to use your access to a Facebook group that you have some clout in, or perhaps your even social channels that you have now to then have people virtually raise their hand. So essentially you could create a message like, hey everybody, I'm really excited because I'm working on this new thing for anybody who's interested in starting a podcast. And, a podcast is something that's changed my life. I've wanted to teach, I've learned to do it myself and it's gotten me great results. I want to help other people do it too. So if this is something that you want to learn more about with me or from me, then just type me in the message below and I'll send you a direct message on Facebook. And that way, that's the virtual hand raise. And those are the people who are, quote, interested.
Yeah, and thank you, by the way, for mentioning that about like kind of your situation, which was actually kind of similar to mine way back in the day, but very different than the way a lot of people build brands now, which I love. Actually, it's much easier to a certain degree because a lot of people are focused on one topic, which is awesome.
Right, and you focus on the solution. You focus on the outcome, not the solution. So, Dave, for you, for example, if you were to create a physical workbook, I'm just making this up, like a journal for people who have online courses so that they can crush it with online courses, you wouldn't like go to your audience and go, all right, raise your hand if you're interested in a journal about online courses. You're already telling them what you're doing. But like you've already had them raise their hand because they're a part of your audience. Like everybody needs help with online courses, so you can skip that additional step.
Exactly, and that's about 90. And that's a very important point though for everyone listening to this. That Pat, where his brand is a little bit different, is that he covers a variety of different things: podcasting, affiliate marketing. There's a variety of different things in there, so that's why your segmentation is so much more important for what you do. Now, have you noticed when you pre-sell a course, now that you've done 4 of these, is there a time frame that works best for you when you first mention you can sign up, like literally taking people's money at this point versus delivering that first module?
I mean, we've tested a few things. We've tested 3 days, 5 days, and 7 days. All of them have worked. There's really, I would give people a few days to think about it because it's obviously going to be an investment, especially for the types of courses that we're talking about and that you've taught, and which I think is important. You want to play in the premium playground, but you don't also want to go like a whole month. So I think a week max has been great for us. The most important thing is that A, it's on top of people's minds, and B, there's a clear point of decision that needs to be made. And B and C or 3 or Roman numeral 3 or whatever is that they realize that A, you're being fully transparent. This thing is not made yet. B, they understand the benefits of doing it. So maybe the course is cheaper, maybe not. But even if it's the same, there still are benefits for a person to sign up. Number one, there are people who are always in our audiences who are early adopters. They just always want to have their hands on things first. It's those, that crowd, right? Then there are people who want this because you're going to give them a little bit of extra love and tender, love and care during this process versus if they were to sign up later, well, that's going to be the normal way to go through the course versus this, which is like they get a little bit more access to you, perhaps some additional calls or other things.
Yeah, I was gonna ask how that actually takes shape.
Yeah, and that's kind of working both ways, right? Like they get extra access to you so they can ask questions But guess what? Those questions are for you to also understand what you should also be doing in the course to build it correctly. So
right, you might find a gap. You might find something where everyone's asking the exact same question. Like, oh my God, I should have covered that.
Exactly, which then you can go, oh, by the way, that's coming out in the next video.
Right.
Which then you can make and create on the go.
Do you then, so the course starts on X date, obviously. You go through, and I got you. So you're basically, are you giving them a Facebook group or a pipeline to get to you, or what do you do when you first do that?
Facebook group usually is the best way
to
go.
So you got to have this like beta Facebook group, if you will, which then eventually could turn into your big Facebook group for the course. But then you go through, and do you then record, I'm just saying your method here, do you then record it every week? Or, because what you do, and just so people know this, you don't do them live. It's not live. You're still recording at your studio on your time. It's just that you're releasing them once a week. But do you still record them that week, or do you record them in bunches, or how do you like to do it?
I record them in bunches. So typically what will happen is I will record all of the very first module and then deliver all of that very first module to everybody.
Okay, so week 1. There we go.
Week 1. And then it's essentially around that time that I'm collecting some immediate feedback on just the delivery method, any sort of obvious holes that I can then either replace a video with or make sure is in module 2 when I then record it. So I do set time aside when a course is being, launched, or not even after it's launched, but when it's being delivered, to know that I'm going to be recording as well. I don't do it live, like you said. Live would be, and many people do this as well. They will actually have like a webinar call that is prepared ahead of time, but it's live to the beta students with slides and you're teaching. And, there are pros and cons. The con to that is, like, if you spend too much time interacting with that particular crowd, well, then what you're recording is the interaction with that particular crowd.
I agree with that.
Anybody who comes in later might not see that. So you may have to edit things so that it is only teaching and the sort of interaction parts later are removed or what have you. But I work really well when I batch process. And so I essentially take an iterative approach. I offer module 1. Again, a lot of it is based on the feedback I had already received in the past about the outline. So the outlining part is already been worked on. So I know that what it is that I'm delivering is something that they would want. It's just the how that I'm delivering it. And then film, deliver, done. Okay, nice. And is there have you varied in the amount of weeks that you've taken to actually deliver it, or what would you say is your average? Yeah, Smart from Scratch was interesting because it was the first time we'd ever done this. So we released module 1 to everybody after they got in and after the beta launch and stuff. And then it took a month and a half before they received module 2. And you might think, like, wow, this is a really long time. Like, people would get upset. But you know what? I was just very honest with them along the way. And that's what's going to save you from ever feeling like you're doing something wrong or that they're being taken advantage of. I was just letting them know that I wanted to make sure that I filled in all the pieces. And because this was a very headspace sort of course versus a more tactical sort of just step-by-step one like Power Up Podcasting, there were a lot of new things that had to come up and that I had to film for that were kind of unexpected, which is, again, part of the benefit of doing this. A lot of people were finding challenges in some of the first exercises that I was giving, so I had to create some new content that I didn't think I would have to create, which, again, I'm so thankful for doing it that way because I would have just completely skipped that or not even realized that was important if I had created the whole course all at once. Got it. And so what have your other courses too? I mean, has it been like what I'm trying to get at is it like a 4-week thing? Is it a 6-week thing? Is it a 10-week thing? Type of thing? It varies on the content. Yeah. And I think over time it's just become easier because now I'm used to the process. I also realize that there's a lot of benefit in like literally scheduling 2 days straight to do this and really getting in a good headspace and just pumping it all out versus like, if I'm going to record the next module, like let's do it all in 1.5 or 1 day, even if we can, which means prep work ahead of time, not necessarily scripting every video for every word, but really getting into detailed outlines and then trusting myself to be able to deliver that information to them. But how long it's going to take depends on how much course content you have, which obviously you teach, no more than 12 modules and videos can vary between, 30 seconds to sometimes, 20 minutes, half hour. I mean, it really depends. Nice. Really interesting. So you finish the beta testing, and I certainly get it. You get testimonials, you get feedback, you get all those kind of things. And what I'm curious about for you and what you're doing is the ongoing sales mechanism, because this is where a lot of course creators struggle, is they learn to launch one way or another, whether it's the pre-selling launch, the VIP launch that I teach. There's a variety of ways to different launch, right? They get their launches, they do things like that. But where people struggle
this is the real key to growing to 6-7 figures in a course business, is the ongoing sales, right? And this is a constant battle. It's a constant thing that's changing a lot in the industry. And I'm curious because I went to your site the other day, for example, Pat, I was just clicking around on stuff, and I was looking, I saw some of your courses available, some are not available right now. And I'm just curious, and I know this is an ongoing thing. I know it's changing. I know you're still figuring it out and experimenting and testing and things like that. But I'm curious, what have you been seeing has been working for you in terms of ongoing sales?
It's funny because I've done the same kind of research on others, and it's honestly, it's all across the board. There are thousands of different ways to promote the course that you've created, which is an amazing opportunity. It's like, wow, you can find one that fits your style, but the hard thing is finding one that fits your style. And I think it requires a lot of experimentation. And what's been working well for us, which doesn't mean it's what we're always going to do, because we're always trying to look for better, more efficient ways to do things.
It's almost like what's working for you right now is really what the asterisks, right?
Yes, and what's working for us right now is, so we have, for example, Power Up Podcasting. It's always open, and it's always open at a certain price. However, we do encourage people to sign up for a webinar.
Okay.
To learn some training.
Yep.
And they get into that webinar through a lead magnet that they download and then learn about it through, I just have a live page where people know that I consistently train and teach things live, to Facebook ads, to all kinds of mechanisms to get people into a webinar. I'm not really pushing the course that is live now, but people can still find it if they try hard. But really what I'm driving people to is a webinar. And then on a specific day, I have a live webinar, and then people for between 4 and 7 days go through a launch process after that webinar, which does help out actually, because then I can increase the scarcity. There is an actual end date where people can join in that particular enrollment group. And yes, people can actually join at any time. But when I focus a lot of energy into that one moment, then a few things happen. Number one, we have been experimenting with bonuses, and bonuses have worked out really well, bonuses that go away. We've also been experimenting with discounts as well. And yes, $100 off during this time. It works especially because I say you can go and get it right now. Like you could go to poweruppodcasting.com right now and
it's
get
real.
it.
It's right there. You're like, hey, listen, here, go get the regular package, or you can save $100 right now, right?
Right. So it's not like I'm pretending that it's off at like a discount. It is really discounted. So that helps with the positioning. And then also the follow-up sequence that happens after that. Actually, it was funny because the last time we did a webinar together, you had told me that a majority of your sales come directly live on the webinar. And I think that's a huge testament to the way that you approach your sales and how you've structured your webinars. And I know you've worked with many other people and have done thousands of them in the past, and so you're an expert at that. I need help on the live webinar selling. But what really I have excelled in is the follow-up sequence. So after the webinar is over, knowing that some people on that webinar did not buy, but then there are also people who did not even show up to that webinar, how to convince them to know that this is a product that they need to get, and that there's an end date, and that there's a particular deadline that is coming. And that has worked really well. Other sort of small things that we've done to try and help out is on some of those first follow-up emails are just about the replay only. We hardly even mention the fact that there's
right. You focus on the training, and then right, that makes sense.
So it's all value. We also include the timestamp of that particular webinar, so that if people want to go back, and we just always say like, hey, we're trying to make things easy for you. So in the email and on the page that they go and watch the replay, there are timestamps for when I'm talking about each individual topic, which is really nice. And people have commented a lot about that. I think it's even just a little gesture that people might not even use, but just that they see it there is really nice. And then number 3, after a couple days, then it gets to turn from, go watch the replay to here's this incredible offer, and really trying to show them how incredible it is in many different ways. And some of the emails that go out are really important. I have an email that goes out that's more based on emotion. So I tell a story about somebody that's very emotional about the podcast and the one that they started and how they're now changing people's lives. And then other emails that come out are more for the logical people in my audience, because you will have different kinds of people in your audience who respond to different things. So the logical part of my audience is related to podcasting and just how much it's growing and how much time people are listening to podcasts versus watching YouTube videos versus reading blog posts. And for those people, that's what's going to convince them. And so hitting at all different angles across the way, leading up to a deadline, has been working really well for us. And then the thing about this is the people who didn't buy, guess what? They see the exact pitch a month and a half to 2 months later for the exact same webinar. It's a different webinar. It's live. but it's the same content. And sometimes we found that some people need 3-4 months of the same sort of cycle to finally end up purchasing it. And it's just been really interesting. And, yes, we could automate it at this point and go evergreen with the same replay, but I really enjoy the webinars. I didn't even really think I would enjoy it. I love it.
That's cool. It's really interesting that if I brought 10 people on right now that are successful with online courses, and I said, what's your number one strategy for ongoing sales? You might hear 10 different answers, Pat, which is really interesting, right? Like I would say, auto webinar or this or that, and then our funnel. And I had Billy Jean on from Billy Jean is Marketing on a recent show, and he said, what his magic thing is right now? It's like old school style. He's like, I go an ad to an opt-in page about free Facebook ad training or ad training, and then it's like basically like a 30-minute training into offer video, like a video sales letter, but it doesn't feel like a video sales letter.
All automated, right?
Right, all automated, and it's not even a webinar; it's a different thing. And some people are like, "Oh, I put them into a challenge and this and that." I mean, so I think the thing is like as the climate changes, sometimes you have to experiment and try different things, and then kind of stick with what works until guess what, it doesn't work or it changes, and then you have to go from there because it's a constant process of improving and trying different things and seeing what happens. And I love that, Pat. I mean, for you, it's live webinars right now that are doing that. Would you say that of, let's say, 100 sales of Power Up Podcasting, how many would come from the webinar and the follow-up? I'm just going to put those into one scoop versus an organic person that comes to the sales page just buys out of 100.
I would say 75% from the webinar / follow-up, about 15% coming from just organically finding it through whatever mechanism they found it, and then the remaining 10% coming from affiliates.
It's interesting. And see, there you go. There's Pat's. We need like a pie chart or something like that, Pat. I love it. And thank you for sharing this. It's just really interesting information because I love sharing these, real world kind of what's happening. Like what are people doing that's actually working and not working and things like that right now? Because I think we learn so much more than that as opposed to just like tips or throwing random stuff or fluff or stories. Do you know what I mean? I mean, this stuff's like really interesting. So a couple more things we'll talk about, then we're going to wrap up here in just a couple of minutes here, Pat, as well, is 2 questions. One, which I know, we've talked a lot about the marketing and the sales and things like this here, is happy customers. Let's talk about happy customers. Happy customers are awesome, right? For many ways. And that's really the end. Again, the goal of a course is to get some kind of transformation with your customers. What do you do that makes your customers happy? Like, and I'm not talking about just the content. I'm talking about what else is part of the Pat Flynn course experience that you do that you feel like adds a lot to the customer experience.
Yeah, great question. And I know answers because I am just considering all the things that people have said they've liked about the specific style and way that I do things. So number one is they immediately felt welcome into the community and into the course. So the welcome video is really important. But even before that, oftentimes, and quite honestly, I haven't had the time to do this over the past month because I was sick and traveling. But this is something that I always try to do, and this was a big thing, and it's worked so well, and I encourage other people to do it too, is when people buy, I spend some time during the week to reply to them using a tool called Bonjoro, Bonjoro, which is really cool. What happens is when I see a notification for a sale, I could, even in that very moment, or I could save it for later, but I can go and hit a button in the Bonjoro app on my phone and record a video that I can just share right through that app in literally less than 20 seconds to that person. And so I might say something like, "Hey, David, Pat here. I just saw that you purchased Power Up Podcasting. I just want to say thank you so much. I look forward to seeing more about your show and you crushing it as a podcaster. I'm just again, super thankful for that. Just want to say hi. Thanks again. Bye."
Nice. Do they have that app?
No. It gets to them via email, and they just press play right there in that email.
Cool.
And
Very
it
cool.
blows people's minds. I've even had people immediately reply to that. Actually, 75% of people will immediately reply because it's just so unusual. And they go, "Wow." Like I've had a few people say this. "Now I know my money was spent in the right place." Like just from a video that was sent to them. And it literally took 20 seconds, and I'm on the street like walking anyway. Huge value. And you want to talk about like reducing refund rates. Like that's definitely one way to do it, is make a great first impression.
Sure.
Number 2, always helping people make sure that they're not lost. So a lot of this has to do with the course tools that you use, and many tools will help ensure that when they come back, they can pick up where they left off. But also just in the content itself, remembering that, these are human beings and they might need some help, and to always think about, okay, where might they come across a stumbling block and how can I serve them through that? So this is why collecting feedback along the way is really important. And whenever I collect feedback that is seemingly going to be really helpful for everybody else, I try to make sure it ends up in the course in some way, shape, or form, either later through a reshoot in a video or sometimes just in the text alone, to make sure that a person also doesn't experience what perhaps somebody else had already experienced. So those little touches. Number 3, the way that I teach, and one of my superpowers, and I think it's why I am where I am today, and it's one of our jobs as course creators, is to take really complicated stuff and make it very simple and digestible. And so, a lot of time and care is put not just into what it is I'm talking about, but the pace at which I'm talking about those things. So perhaps not taking a really complicated thing and putting it into one lesson that's 20 minutes long, but perhaps breaking that up into 4 lessons that are 5 minutes long, so that people can, through this complicated process like creating a podcast, take little mini steps and experience little mini milestones along the way, instead of getting overwhelmed by one 20-minute video that's going to take a little bit of time. So that's another thing that I do. And then finally, I will say that people have really been enjoying the interaction that they've had with me in office hours.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you didn't bring that up. That was be my next question.
Yeah, some people have said that office hours alone are worth the price of admission. And one thing that I do, actually, office hours started with just that one course and 1 hour a week for them, that I actually really love office hours a lot. It energizes me, so it's a win for me too. I also am able to use that time even after the beta launch to still continue to collect feedback. So it's as much of a benefit as it is for me as it is for my audience. But course number 2 came, so I had another hour on a different time for them, and then course number 3 came, a different hour for them, and I was like, okay, well, there's obviously a point at which I'm going to be way too overwhelmed with how many hours I devote to these course students. What would happen if I just combined all my course students into one block of time?
Nice. A mega office hours, if you will.
A mega office hours. I even think we even called it that once, and had everybody from all the courses come in and just served everybody through there. So we use Zoom because it easily organizes the questions that come in through the Q&A box. And the response has been amazing. People love the fact that they're hearing questions from other people in other courses now. And it has even inspired people to then get up and go and buy some of those other courses.
That sounds interesting in itself. I mean, you're helping students, and also it's kind of like a real casual cross promotion there, right? Because you've got people that have already bought one course and more likely to buy another course.
Right, and they're meeting more people. Office hours are more lively just because there's more people there, and they can also see and hear the extent of knowledge that I have to serve them, and see how I'm helping others, even if they're not in that course. And actually, because I serve entrepreneurs, all the courses are interrelated anyway. So questions, even for a person in one course, is still useful most of the time for people in other courses too. So more value. And actually, now it's just a 2-hour block for 3 courses. So I'm actually saving time too. So it's kind of, again, a win for everybody.
I love it. So that's, again, and I think the big kind of takeaway there, the lesson for anyone listening to this too, is that, a course, and I say this all the time, this is going to be like a broken record to some people, but a course is more than a course, right? A course is more than just, here's some things to learn, right? And by the way, there will certainly be a percentage of your course takers that's all they want, Pat. There's certainly a percentage of that. There's certain people that just listen, they're like, just give me the freaking content. I'm going to go do it on my own. I don't need any support. I don't need office hours. I don't need videos. I just need to know exactly how to do this. I'm going to go do it, and I'm going to go get it done, right?
Right.
But then, of course, there's other things that most people will find very valuable. And it all starts with that customer experience of taking care of people, doing things like Pat's personal touches, and making sure that you're not what I would call an absentee course creator, right? Because that's the key. I mean, you show up. We all show up in different ways. We were trying to do data the other day on something, Pat. We're trying to figure it out, how many questions I've answered in the Create Awesome Online Courses Facebook group since 2013. It's scary, right? If you look at it, it's like 3 lifetimes, right? But I love doing that. And I think where people get themselves into trouble is they view this as, I'm just going to stick it up there and that's it, right? And there's more to it to that to help people get that. And it also, by the way, helps justify your pricing, your positioning, and all those different things, is that it's not just, hey, here's a DVD that we're going to hand you, right?
Right. Absolutely. I think that the experience that people have through the course is really important. We also try to, it's about community to me. And the more that people are a part of the community, the more that people feel welcomed. And I try to encourage people to participate and to ask questions. And I know just from my own experience that when you are involved in something, you are invested. You care more about it, and you are more likely to do the work. One thing we're trying to do to build community is actually we've created a little pin. So each logo for each course I have, very similar in style, but different logos. We've created like an actual pin. Like, when you go to Disneyland, you buy all those pins that you put on you.
Okay.
So every course has their own pin. So we give that to the students after a certain amount of time to, again, welcome them to the community. And we encourage them to wear it when they go to a conference. And it is a conversation starter for people now, which is really cool. And people see other people. Like, I've been noticing now that people are connecting with others because they see a pin from the course that they're in, and then they get to have a conversation about like the course that I've created for them. We also use it as like admission for special meetings that I hold at different conferences. Like, make sure you wear your pin. That's how we're going to know that you get access to this special thing. So again, creating really cool moments like that, and it's just been really cool to see the community build. And the pins cost like $1 each if you order a bunch of them. And
I love it. Try to collect the set. There's a lot of things that do it. It's a badge. It's a literal badge. It's amazing. And like, I've noticed that too. When I started courses, I didn't think, like, it's not that I didn't think it wouldn't be, but it just didn't cross my mind how strong and a powerful community the course students would be. I mean, like, when I started it, like, we're talking like my first course going all the way back to 2011, 2010, is that I thought, oh, this would be a great place for questions and things like that too. But I didn't realize the power of the community until years later. It's like, and that's such a huge part of it now that just goes way beyond just the content of the course as well, Pat. So I love this. So final question on the way out here. I know we're going to let you go. I know it's a busy man. You probably have 300 office hours today, and who knows what you have going on, right? But final question on the way out is, what's Pat Flynn going to be up to in 2019? Got to know what's going on.
Ooh, all right.
Or at least to start it off.
Yeah, I mean, wow. Okay. So a few cool things. Number one, I have a physical product coming out, and it's in the videography space. So it's actually a tripod. It's called a SwitchPod. You can see it at switchpod.co. And this is literally a result of scratching my own itch for something that I want as a vlogger. And it should do pretty well. We're going to kickstart at the end of January, which is pretty fun. The really big thing is two big things. Number next is my next book is coming out next year, and I'm excited about that.
Give us a hint. What's that going to be about?
Yeah, I mean, this is actually a result of a presentation that I've been giving for years that is my most popular and most demand presentation, which is about how to build superfans in your business. And it's been really cool that how a presentation has now taken a life of its own and is now turning into a book. And then finally, and the big one, is FlynnCon. FlynnCon 1 is happening. This is an event that I'm throwing in San Diego in July for 500 people. Sent one email out. You want to talk about super fans? I sent one email out. It's already 50% sold out.
Wow.
It's going to be in San Diego. It's going to be awesome. We're really treating it as like a blank canvas of just like, what do we want the best experience to be like for people to have fun, be entertained, be inspired, and get educated. A few notable things is it's a family-friendly event. So there's not going to be swearing. There's no alcohol sanctioned by the event. People are going to bring their kids. And there's also a track for like teenagers that are going to be there. And we also have some really cool things happening with, I don't know. There's just so many things I'm really excited about. But stepping into new realms and always finding out, okay, well, what's scaring me next? That's what I go to.
I love it, Pat. You're always, what's funny is that I could probably ask that question to 10 different people, and obviously I get 10 different answers. But what I love about hearing from you, I knew there was going to be some list of cool stuff going on because you're always trying new stuff. You're willing to step into zones that you know nothing about, or you're just curious about, or you just want to scare the crap out of yourself. And I love that about you. It's one of the many things that makes Pat Flynn. So thank you so much, my man, for coming on here. The website, smartpassiveincome.com. Any other links people should check out, or should take them where they need to go?
I mean, that's the main one.
PowerUpPodcasting.com. Yeah,
PowerUpPodcasting.com and all those things. I mean, I'm sure you're going to have some amazing show notes to direct everybody to all the things. So.
We will have all kinds of good stuff for you in the show notes. All right, awesome. Pat, appreciate it, my friend. Thanks for coming on. This was amazing as usual. Thanks for being the first repeat guest of the new show.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you.
All right, and that just wraps it up here for today on the Rise Up Podcast. I really hope you enjoyed that conversation with Pat. And, what's interesting is that you learn about these methods and see what people are actually doing in the real world of online courses and with their business and the revenue and how they're dealing with customers. It's really inspirational, and it just says, hey, listen, you could do this. You could do this. I mean, there's a few different ways you could do it, and you could do it, right? It's what I love. And it's funny because a lot of people think that I'm very anti pre-selling a course. I'm not. I'm not by any means. I think that example that we talked about was a great example of that where, listen, you got to obviously follow through with what you're going to do. But you can pre-sell it, you can pre-record it, whatever you want to do is totally cool. With me, as long as you're just getting it out there, you're getting it out to the world, you're getting your message out, you're helping people get results, you're taking great care of your customers, you can do it any freaking way you want. Now, if you want to learn even more specifics on how to do it, learn my 7-step method for creating, promoting, and profiting from online courses, you're going to want to sign up for the free training over at createawesomeonlinecourses.com. And by the way, if you know you want to join my number one program, Create Awesome Online Courses, like you're like, enough dilly-dallying, enough, fitsing around, I want to join the number one program in the world to show me how to do this, go to createawesomeonlinecourses.com/unlock, which is a special offer just for podcast listeners. Now, on the way out, one more link. If you haven't subscribed up already to the Rise to Top podcast, what are you waiting for? Come on now. Go to the risetotop.com/subscribe. New episodes are out every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Central. Even if it's a holiday, even if who knows what's going on, it's coming out. All right, my friends, I will see you next time. This has been David Siteman Garland on the Rise to Top podcast. And remember, if you want some fluff, you know what to do. Go pet a buddy.